Welcome back to a new episode of Conversations with Cohen. My guest this week is Dima Gutzeit. As I like to do at the beginning of every episode, Dima, would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to everyone?
Of course. My name is Dima Gutzeit. I'm a founder and CEO of LeapXpert. LeapXpert is a company that operates in a compliant communication space. We're filling the gap between professional communication on enterprise messengers and consumer messengers. We are addressing a long-standing problem that cost the industry giants only last year in the US alone around $2.2 billion USD in fines, which is communication it's called off-channel communication in the space.
So, the goal of this podcast is to try and demystify some of the founder experience. I think often there's lots of accolades and recognition and acknowledgement of founders once they've hit a significant event in their professional careers, but isn't necessarily as good an appreciation for how folks got to where they are and the struggles that they encountered. So maybe we can just dial it back to the beginning. As I understand it, you were born in Russia, is that right?
I was born in the Soviet Union back then. I was born in 1978. When I was 12, this is when the Iron Curtain collapsed, the Soviet Union collapsed, and everybody who could escaped. So I'm coming from a family of Russian Jews, so we moved to Israel. So when I was 12, I moved to Israel, and my whole world changed basically overnight.
How did it change?
It changed because I was born in a communist country, kind of in middle income family, and then moved to Israel, right? And it's a completely different environment. And my parents were both working professionals in Soviet Union, and then we moved. So my father is a software engineer. That's how that's why I went to tech. And my mother used to be also electrical engineer and also professional translator from German to Russian and so on. But when we moved to Israel, we had no friends, we had no support network, right? So my father was not employed for a couple of years. My mother was forced, to do apartment cleaning, right? Completely different lifestyle, social status, income stuff.
Because of that early introduction to software engineering through your father, is that what got you involved in technology? How did that translate?
Since I was 5, back in Soviet Union, I was going with my father to his work, and it was like huge Soviet era mainframes. But I was always driven to this, right? And then every time I got opportunity to touch a computer, right, it was a rarity back then. I could, right? So kind of playing those stupid small games like Karateka. I don't know if you remember. It was a long time ago. But then I always wanted to tinker things like programming. So when I was 5, 6, I was already trying things out, and it never stopped really. So I self-educated completely and can continue evolving throughout the years.
So you're in Israel, presumably you then go through the IDF. Did you do that? Did you have to do that?
Yes, of course. So in Israel, I went through school and then went to army. So I've been to Navy. I spent 3 years in Navy on the battleships. It's a missile carrier. It's not a very big ship in the US standards, but for Israel, it's a big ship, and it's the most. Once upon a time, I think it was the most weaponized platform in the world. Number of weapons on it compared to its size. And in the Navy, I was in charge of a place on a ship called the CIC. It's called the Combat Information Center. And in the Navy, that was my first experience in communication in general, and also in technology and management. So kind of I joined as a simple soldier, so I wasn't an officer or anything. But by the end of my service, I was in charge of around 30 soldiers on a ship, and I was in charge of different parts. It was a navigation system, communication system, and a few others. So I got experience with many different systems, technology-wise. I was very good in comms, both talking to comms and planning all different communication strategies. And I was also good in management in general. In the Navy, there are few flotillas, right? So I was an exceptionally good soldier in a flotilla. So it was 1 out of 1,000 get it every year.
Wow.
And I got it.
Congratulations.
Thanks. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, well, it's still a big deal. So then you get out of the Navy, and where do you go next?
I got to the Navy, and then since I was very little, I was working all the time. So since I was 12, I was helping my mom, to wash apartments, to wash stairs.
Wow. Just
earn some money and then give it back to her. And then when I was 14, 15, 16, I was a waiter, I was a dishwasher. I was doing anything I could. And I was also building some websites. Anyways, any source of income to help my mom. And I continued with this. So after I became like a There was a petroleum plant, and I was a guard there. When I was a guard at night, I remember there was no computer. I was writing code on a piece of paper and then going back, typing in, and it would compile. So I was happy. Right. So I continued to work. So as a guard first, and then I got my first job as a support person in an internet service provider. So I was doing this for a year. I was good at it. And then in the same company, I was promoted to be a webmaster. Webmaster is somebody who maintains websites. So I was doing that for a couple of years. And then I got my first real job. And this is where I started working in the world of communication, enterprise communication. So it was a startup that was doing voice over IP solutions, like class 5 soft switches, voice over IP applications for mobile devices. Back then it was Nokia, Symbian, BlackBerry, previous generation. Yeah, and then I was working in that startup for around 10 years. And there, I grew from a very simple developer, then to a team lead, and then at the end, I was a VP of engineering. And during my work, my CEO, he pushed me, and I'm thankful for him for life. He pushed me to go to university, right? But back then, I was already kind of in the industry, so I was a good developer. I was a good team lead, I think. And then I went to do like executive degree. So I was studying in the evenings and on weekends. And my teachers hated me because I'm coming from the industry, so I was teaching them in some topics, right? And yeah, so I've done it in 2-3 years, and I got my bachelor. So without my boss pushing me towards it, yeah, I would be without degree.
For those who aren't familiar, so when you say within the executive communications sector, can you help but sort of paint the framework of what that was?
What I was working?
Yeah, or the sector as a whole, the industry.
Yeah, so the industry is about communication, right? So more specifically, that's what still I'm doing. It's about communication over the internet, right? It was a voice over IP, those applications that you use to make and receive calls on mobile devices, right? Not the mobile operator, and also messaging, and back then, this was the time when the messaging started. If you remember, the first big messaging application was AIM, but
sure.
The even bigger one was an application called ICQ by Israeli company called Mirablis. They eventually exited, I think, to AT&T, to somebody for $400 million. Right, so it was the beginning of voice over IP and messaging over internet, and I was right there at the beginning. So,
and what was it? What was it that you liked about, or what was it that fascinated you about that industry?
It's the ability in an easy way, in an expensive way, to reach out to masses. Right? So if previously, if you remember SMS at the beginning, it was you were paying per message.
Yes.
Right? So people were really constrained by what they can talk about or number of characters they can send. And then all of a sudden, this world of consumer communication came that removed all barriers. So people starting to communicate freely. The calls became free because you could, like Skype, right? You could call somebody without thinking on about how many minutes you talk, or you can send messages without thinking on how many characters in the message. So it was a transformational because all of a sudden, not only people with means could communicate freely. Now everybody could message and explode from them, right? So it was the first one in the messaging space, and then Skype became a phenomenon that make calls available to everybody, right? And then WhatsApp brought it to billions of people.
And so in this journey that you're having, at some point it brings you to Hong Kong?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I was growing happily in Israel, and my job was, so it was a small startup, and my job.
And by the way, did you like working at a startup? Did you like?
Yeah, of course. No. I still work at a startup, right? I mean, I have a startup, but I really enjoy, because in startup you can, with not much, you can create a lot. You can really make an impact fast. So I like the fast pace of startups. I like how it iterates, how fast you can create products. And if you fail, you fail fast as well. Right. So in this mode, so the startup was around 35 people.
And what does that mean? Just if I may for a moment, what does that mean? Fail fast. I've heard that plenty of times, but what does that mean?
Yeah. So let's say you have an idea, right, and then you spend some time developing the idea, and then you take the idea to market. Now, and then you took a bet, right? It's a new product. You took a bet. You went to market. It happens for many startups that the initial assumptions were wrong. and the product doesn't have this, this holy grail of a product market fit. Because it's a startup, because you did not invest gazillion of dollars, you can scrap it, right? And you can start from scratch, right? Or maybe you can take few of the ideas that made sense, remove everything that did not make sense, and keep iterating until you have this product market fit, right? PMF. And the way I became good at it, I think, is in the startup it was like a multifaceted role. So on one hand, I was good speaking with clients. So my superpower in general still is this intersection between customers, products, and technology. So I understand the need, I know how to build a product, and I can myself build a product, right? So in that company, I was traveling all over the world. So we were selling to telecommunication companies. So I was selling to them. I was telling them the art of possible. I was understanding their need. I was understanding also kind of how that company was set up. And then I was going back to Israel. I was telling all of this to the team. We've been building the products, and then we're delivering those products to those customers. Rinse and repeat. Now, the problem was that it was not really a product company. So we were creating technology, not a product, right? And then the way it results is when you create a technology, then all your projects become custom-made or tailored for a specific customer. And by the very definition of this mode, those companies are not scalable. So, and I mean, back then I didn't know that. I understood much later. But that was so I was doing this. I was traveling. I was learning. I was distilling. I was going back, building product, rinse and repeat for around 10 years.
And at what point, when you're in Hong Kong, because you were saying you were in a startup in Israel, and you moved to Hong Kong, at what point is there this either aha moment or this opportunity that you see to do something different?
Okay. So because I was traveling a lot, I was also going a lot to Asia. And then I became familiar with the telecommunication market in Hong Kong. Right? And then there was a company that had an idea. So there was a company, that telecommunication provider in Hong Kong, that had an idea to come up with, they were calling it a mobile internet arm, which was technically creating something like WhatsApp before WhatsApp was a thing. It's an application for messaging and voice. And I knew this field very well. So they hired me from Israel, right? They offered me a really good package, a beautiful expat life in Hong Kong. And then I moved to Hong Kong, kind of, you know what, I'm going for it. And it was a very interesting experience because, so I'm Western person coming from Israel, right? Very kind of open society. The way that Israeli army and technology market operates is, so there is no hierarchy almost. Everybody free to share ideas, right? And it's like collaborative process. It's in Israel, there are some top-down decisions, but the real products are created within the company by multiple iteration, not really top-down. And then I moved to Hong Kong, which is completely different. I mean, now it's part of China. Back then it wasn't. And so completely different mindset, right? Completely different hierarchical thinking, right? So Chinese culture is very top-down, right? You never question decisions, people above you. So I moved to Hong Kong to this company and I became a CTO, right? So kind of very senior role, but the company management, they always seen me as this smart. In Hong Kong, there is a term called guaylo. I mean, if it's a bad term describing a white person in Hong Kong. Right, so they were seeing me as this smart guaylo that knows technology, but they never took any of my inputs when it comes to product, when it comes to go to market, when it comes either market at all, none of that. So I was always, and I was really good in technology. I'm still, right? So they hired me as a CTO. So my role was boxed into the CTO role, Chief Technology Officer, right? And I was working for that company for around 7-8 years. At the beginning, it was great because at the beginning, we've been building this new, exciting product. And I hired my first guy after moving to Hong Kong. And his name is Nicholas. And right now he's a head of engineering. And then over the time, it grew to, the operation grew to around 200 people in the first 2 years, again, from scratch, from code from scratch, people from scratch, everything. We built a product that at the peak had around 20 million monthly active users. So it was a pretty big operation. Wow. It was deployed all around the world. It was a pre-cloud times. So we had presence in, I think, 20 points of presence all around the world. So it's like physical servers everywhere. It was at some point it was a big success, especially in Asia, Southeast Asia. There were many users. But then kind of it peaked and it went down. there were kind of some issues, and the company responded not well. Anyways, the product eventually died out. But again, technology was great. Everything else wasn't so great. Part of the reasons is because the company management just wouldn't listen. Right? Kind of, I knew how to build products by then, right? And I knew what ticks, but they were just not listening. And for me, so those 7-8 user experience were kind of emotional, because people always talk about maturity, right? Are you a mature individual, or is it a mature product? Now, what is maturity? Maturity is combination of pain, a lot of pain, and reflection. If you do both, you mature. If you go just through pain, you're stupid, right? So that time for me was transformational in a way that it matured me, because it was very hard. First of all, the Hong Kong Chinese society. Second, kind of the top-down Chinese management style. And I was in I had a very good relationship with the company owner, but the CEO was whatever. We're not thinking at the same terms, and it was hard. So first 2 years were cool. We were building a product, but afterwards it just all came apart. But I learned a lot. So the company it was my first time being a CTO, managing such a big organization. So I've made many mistakes, as all of us making mistakes. So that company paid for my mistakes. I believe I paid back as well. But so I matured a lot. So I learned a lot about what to do when you build a company, when you build a product. And I also learned what not to do when you build a company and you build a product. So I think that right now, my lessons learned are well adapted in the current company, in LeapXpert. And so far we are successful in what we do.
Well, so I'm envisioning you're hitting a glass ceiling. You've learned what you could. You've learned what you could from that experience. You've
totally ceiling. It was a glass box. So going sideways was also hard.
Okay, so basically you couldn't move. So then it's okay. So how do you grow from there? And is that when LeapXpert comes about?
Yeah. So at that company, I also met. So at one point of time, that company was about to get dual listed on Hong Kong Stock Exchange and New York Stock Exchange. Right. As a company CTO, I was going through all this process. So I also learned that company at that time hired a lawyer who was helping with going public. And that lawyer, she became company co-founder. Now she's also my wife. She pushed me out of my comfort zone. Right. So I was always an employee. So I had previous ideas, and I always tried to do something. Right. So I had a few other startup attempts, but those attempts failed at the very beginning. So I was always writing tech, but at the moment it comes to raising money, I couldn't. I just didn't know how. So together with her, her name is Rina, we started working on this concept, right? So I was bored, and by that, and again, I was living an expat life in Hong Kong. I was paid well. I was also stupid enough. I was spending a lot of money, but I saved some money on the side. And in around 2016, I said, okay, so it's either I leave this company and starting something fresh, or I continue. Yeah. So I came to the company owner. I said, you know what, I'm leaving. I had enough. And he told me, don't leave, stay with the company because we need a CTO, but you can do things on the side. You can start your own consulting company, and you can try to do things you like to do. And he even gave me some seed money, and then a small amount. And then I added all my savings to it, and I started a company called Innovation Hub. And the idea was a venture builder, like a startup studio. So I know how to build products. So I meet people with ideas that don't know how to build products. And together we build something. There's some joint ownership, and that's it, right? So this was the idea. I was naive back then. And then through this exploration, I spoke to a few people who work in the financial industry, right? Because Hong Kong is a financial hub. So there are lots of bankers, right? Investment banking, wealth management, you name it. And then we had, it was 2016. And then the idea that came to me was, so big financial institutions, they have many different IT platforms that help them to work. But if you look on smaller firms, like RIAs, AEMs, like at smaller firms, they have nothing. They still operate on paper and on fax. So that was the kind of the premise. I did not do market validation for this because I trusted that person that he knows his things. And then I put the money I have. I hired a small team in Vietnam, a few people, and we started doing some prototypes. And it was going for a year and a half.
And the prototype was to be what? To be a vehicle for companies, large and small, financial institutions, large and small, to be able to communicate.
No, right. So the prototype was a set of tools, for example, a small widget to manage your portfolio and show portfolio performance.
Okay. Wow.
Or like a few other things.
Okay.
But one of the components of that application was communication. But that was communication between a company employee, let's say, investment firm, and external parties, right? Like one-to-one communication. So we built. So it was already kind of MVP, like very rough idea, and then we went to market. Before going to market, my initial idea was that I'm running this venture builder, and then I build an idea, I hire CEO, and then the CEO can run the business, and then I focus on something else, right? I was stupid, naive. Right. So we built this prototype, and then I went to market and started to see if there's market for it. I should have done reverse, right? Anyways, so and then no, nobody wanted that product. I even tried to hire CEO to run this business. Forget it. It just because there was no product market fit.
And here you've put your own money into this thing.
Yeah, I put so including the seed money from my previous believer and boss, company owner, and my own investment. I put around 1.5 million USD. Wow. Right? It's all I had, really, right? I went all in.
All in.
Yeah, and then I see that there is no market traction. There's nothing. Okay, so and then I said one day, what do you do? Right, and then I again, my co-founder Rina with me, and then we thinking, okay, not going anywhere. And then we started to realize that, messaging is important. Definitely, messaging is the future. I mean, I knew it since 2000, where I started in messaging. But the way that people started to communicate, and Asia is the hotbed of messaging, right? And all the business was around us was conducted over WeChat. Right, WeChat is the most popular messenger in China, and all the business also connected on WhatsApp. Right, so I mean, and now we go to these small firms that we tell them use our application to communicate. They don't care; they can do the same and better over WhatsApp. Why would they use our product? So, but then, so being in the financial hub, I also got exposed and helping with the help of my co-founder, who is also a lawyer. We realized that there are regulations in place. Right, and the regulations are that any communication between regulated firm of any size, it can be one person or 1,000 people, but there is fundamental requirement that communication must be archived. So on one hand, we see business conducted on huge scale over WhatsApp, right? I mean, IPOs, like Alibaba IPO is launched by using WeChat and WhatsApp. That's insane, right? So there's this massive wave of things happening, and there are regulations in place saying, it's a big no-no of doing it, right? And that was the aha moment. So I locked myself in a room for 3 days, right? Like longer, right? And back then I was companies was a very, very small company. So I was doing everything, but I was also developing, right? So hope still is good developer in backend, and I was also doing front end. So I could prototype end-to-end product by myself. Of course, I was helped by a small team in Vietnam. It was 4 or 6 people, right? But I was coding full time. And then, so I had this realization that, nobody will use communication applications like that are forced on people. Everybody are using consumer messengers, right? So, and there is a big gap. So something needs to be done. So I locked myself in a room for a few weeks, and then I came up with a prototype. And the prototype was very rough, but it was using like mobile application that belongs to a firm. From there, being able to send a message over somebody to WhatsApp. So I built integration with WhatsApp, and I built integration with WeChat. So 2 different channels. It was working. It took a few weeks, but it was working. And that was already kind of end of 2018.
Were you gun shy at that point to do that because of the experience he had just a short moment before then?
No, I mean, it was for me. It was a situation that I'm running out of money, right? So my main job, I suffer there, right? I run out of money. My initial idea did not work out, right? So I mean, what's next? So kind of all the idea of this venture building collapses because the first venture collapses, right? So yeah, it was kind of not good all over. And then with the last bit of money, I still remember it was like, so it was 2000 USD, something, right? So in Asia, every year, there's this big festival called the Singapore FinTech Festival. It's the biggest FinTech event that everybody comes to. So, and I applied for a startup booth, like really, really, really small booth, like 2 feet wide, I don't know, really small in a startup section. And those events, startup sections, they're always somewhere at the back because all the main spaces are be taken by those giants. So very small booth. We printed a few leaflets and it was very unprofessional, right? And our booths were right next to toilet. I mean, it's like the worst location you can imagine on a trade show. We got it. Why? Because it was the cheapest, right? It was at 2,500, and then I flew one guy from Vietnam, and then I flew myself. And at that time, my co-founder, not now co-founder, back then we were just friends. No, actually, we were dating pretty heavily. But so she was supporting me at that point. A lawyer, good salary, right? Kind of okay. Right. So I had zero options. So with last of everything, I had an option to find a job, right? But I wasn't at that mindset anymore. So I went to this event and we put a laptop, like monitor, and then we it was a like small demo, right? It's our application, and then it was WhatsApp, and then sharing messages. I mean, like very, very simple. So standing there in the booth and praying that somebody will come, or not, already thinking, okay, what's next? Okay, no options. And then at the event, so the location was kind of the cheapest one, but there was one very big upside to the location. The traffic was good. I mean, everybody needs to go to the toilet. We're all humans. So back then at this booth, we were approached by head of innovation of Morgan Stanley, by senior people from HSBC. Again, Hong Kong, Singapore, I'm a techie. And then those senior bankers, for me, that was like, wow, right? So they approached me and they said, you know what, let's have a meeting. So there's a need. We need something like that. Let's meet in our offices in Hong Kong. I'm like, okay. So definitely that was the beginning of product market fit, right? That was the moment that I was missing with all my previous attempts to create products. So I understood there is something definitely here. And then next week, I came to my boss. I said, I quit. I mean, I tried things on the side. Some of them working. Thank you very much. I mean, he didn't like it at all because he thought he could keep me forever in this, in this state that I'm working for him, but also doing things on the side. And that's it. Quit. So he was upset. It was ugly divorce. But anyways, and then I went to Morgan Stanley. Right, I met them at the office, and then one of the people I met in Morgan Stanley, her husband works in Goldman Sachs, right? So, and back then it was a like tiny product. We had like shitty website, one pager. It was ugly, and so all of a sudden, so I sit home and I write my code and thinking, what's next? I quit. Now I don't have income at all. And then I receive there's a form to submit interest on website. And then I receive an email saying, this is XYZ from Goldman Sachs. We want to see your product. Can you come to our office? HSBC, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs want to see my product, right? So it was and then kind of going to a few more meetings and really interest. And then the guy from Goldman Sachs told me, we've seen a couple of attempts of doing what you do, but you doing it the right way. Because other companies back then, there were two other companies trying to do things in this space, but they were selling technology and shitty technology. They were doing like different hacks to get message content. While what we had a product, right? And going back, right, the big difference between technology and product. And I got validation from 3 biggest banks in the world that what we're doing makes sense. Now, okay, so again, we had a good idea, we have tremendous interest, but we have no money. So it happens, right? And around that time, okay, let me go back a little bit. So the reason why I moved to Hong Kong in 2012 is because I was introduced to this company in Hong Kong. And the person who introduced me to this company is our third co-founder, Avi, right? And then throughout the years, when I was in Hong Kong, we've been always in touch. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, we've been meeting like every 6 months or so. And so it was the beginning of 2019, like January. And then I met with Avi with a regular catch up. And Avi, back then, he was a managing director of APAC for a NASDAQ listed company, like a big company, like big job, huge income. And then I met him and I said, listen, I'm doing this and this is my traction and, we'll make something out of it. And then he got extremely interested. I mean, he was never interested, but he started like asking more and more and more and more. And they're like, okay, let's meet. Show me the product. right? And I thought that he wants to be a consultant, right? He wants to help somehow. And then around the same time frame, right? So no money, right? But product validation. And then Avi calls me like a couple of weeks after our meeting and says, I quit my job. I want to join you. I'm like, what? First of all, I don't have money to pay you. Let's start there. Second, do you really believe that this something, it was barely working back then, right? Do you think it's kind of you want to bet your professional future on this? And he's older than me by 5 years. Kind of he was part of 2 successful exits before. Kind of so he has this depth that I don't have at all. So his specialty is business. My specialty is technology and product. Right. So for me, it was first validation that we're on the right track was that all those 3 giants are all of a sudden interested in what we do. Second validation for me and Rina was that Avi wants to join. Right. So it was revelation for me. So with all this happening, and again, okay, now going back to Hong Kong is a financial center, right? And my girlfriend back then, my co-founder, and my wife right now, she was part of this financial scene in Hong Kong. She was taking companies public, right? So she knew all the right people. And then she introduced me to our first angel investors. And so I still remember this meeting. Again, barely working prototype. I did not raise any money before, right? And then I meet a few of senior ex-bankers, right? People that used to be like very, very senior in Deutsche Bank and Citi, like big names. And I told them the story. And then I didn't know kind of how do we go to market with this yet, right? I have not done before. I mean, I've done it before, but I have not done it before. So, but I told the story, right? The story of the need, and they knew the need, right? Because the whole industry knew the need. They knew the regulations, but the whole industry back then was not giving a shit about regulations and just doing whatever they can to do business. I mean, it's fine. It's fine as long as you're not fined, right? So for the bankers, the need was clear. The product was working. I was able to show it. And that's how I got my first investment. So we raised the $2 million at the beginning of 2019, right? And then it was huge money for me back then.
It was a lifeline. It was a lifeline when you didn't have any lifelines.
And I was like 1 week away from not being able to pay salaries to our 4 or 6 people in Vietnam and to myself and to Avi for sure, right? Right. So we raised $2 million. It was a convertible note, like safe. And then we rented our first office. It was a very small office. We could barely fit 3 people there. But we were talking to Morgan Stanley. We're talking to Goldman Sachs. But I mean, talking to those giants you can talk for years.
Years, right? Right, for years.
Yes. So they were interested, and I would not be mentioning any names, but back then I was also introduced to a company that operates in banking enterprise communication space. I think it was the go-to product when bankers needed to talk to each other. So through Goldman Sachs, I was introduced to that company, and I was naive, still young, naive, very passionate about product and technology. So I met with this company CEO and I told him what we're doing, and we signed NDA. So I told him what we do, and that company kind of, with the help of Goldman, because Goldman was using them and they wanted to use something like we do. So there was a gap they want to close. So I was speaking with this company and I told them basically everything. I told them how the idea came about. I told them how I do it. I was talking too much, right? And I met with the company CEO, and back then it was a company worth, I think, valued at $1 billion, unicorn back then. And I was naive. So I was speaking with them a few months, and then the discussions went nowhere, right? And then so it was all happening in 2019. And but I also became very, very active in the Hong Kong startup ecosystem, because kind of I look Western, which was rare in Hong Kong startups, and kind of so it helped. So and I became meeting with more and more people, and then through those meetings we came to know a product that called FinTech Innovation Lab, APAC. It's run by Accenture. So I pitched the idea, and over exciting, and we were accepted to this program. It was in October 2019. At the time that we were accepted to the program, that company that I was talking with, they launched something that looks like a competing product, right? So the reality is that I was brain raped, right? Because I was naive. Anyways, so it was a very big disappointment for me, right? Because it stripped me from my naivety. I understood that the business world have a little bit different rules. It's not only about the best product, best technology. It's also you need to meet the right people along the way, because the wrong people will destroy you and the right people will lift you. Right? It was a kind of, and it's a very good lesson to people who start the company, because you cannot be good in everything, right? So you're good at something, but you definitely have gaps. So it's very important to surround yourself with people that fill those gaps, right? So you need to play to your strengths, but you need to surround yourself people that contribute and hide or compensate your weaknesses. Avi, right, my co-founder, he was telling me, don't talk to them. Shut up. Don't talk to them. I did not listen to him, right? I mean, he's experienced, right? But I just did not listen to him. If I would listen to him, I would be smarter.
Yeah, but you were excited about the opportunity. Here's somebody who wants to listen to you. Like, you can't, you're jumping out of your pants, excited to share with the world something that you've come up with as an idea. So I get it.
Which is not always the best idea. Anyways, so we've been accepted to this program, and it was a cohort of around 10 startups, and we've been by far the best startup in the cohort. And through this program, we've been introduced to everybody who's and who in this financial world, like big financial institutions. So now all of a sudden, I present a product which continues to mature. No customers yet. Oh, no, actually, we had our first customer was I think it was in May 2019. It was our first ever income of 1,250 USD. They bought the product just to tick the box of compliance. They never used it, right? And it was funny because it was our first product. It was our first customer, but up until today, it's our only churn. Anyways, yeah. So now all of a sudden, I'm on big stages and I speak with hundreds of people and I tell them, this is how you need to be doing things. And then,
but you still at that point haven't really sold anything except for that one.
Nothing.
So what are you talking to people about? This is how you do what?
This is how you need to do communication in a compliant manner.
Okay.
Right?
So you're a thought leader.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So I tell them, you guys, you have a gap. You're using WhatsApp, WeChat all day long. Have a gap. It's irresponsible for you to not using a platform like us. And by the way, this is how it works. Right. Every time I was showing like live demos of things, right? Like I was picking a person in audience. I was asking, "What's your phone number? Like, what's your WhatsApp?" Right? And then I was in my application on a big screen. I was adding their contact to my contact list, and I was messaging them on WhatsApp in a compliant manner. And then I was showing them this audit log showing that now you're fully compliant. And by the way, through this exercise. So I was doing it on every demo. I was asking senior people the phone numbers, and then all of this was going to our CRM at the back. It was funny. Anyways, so many banks, and then we got a kind of initial traction with HSBC. They were believers in what we do from day one. They had the need for sure, but it was before there was a real need. The real need manifested only in 2021 when the SEC started to fine people. Right, this is when everybody started to panic. But back then, we were lucky enough to meet a very good person from HSBC who was a thinker, but he understood that this will come, and HSBC needs to do something before it's becoming a bad thing. And so HSBC became our first customer. So HSBC became the first real prospect, not a customer yet. And then COVID hit. End of 2019, COVID hit. COVID started when I was in San Francisco. It was my first trip to the West Coast. And then I still remember Wuhan was already kind of on lockdown, and US was still in this Trump mode that nothing happens, and it's all just a flu. So I remember I was in the US. I flew back, and then all the borders closed. And by that time, our $2 million that we raised running out, right? And we already have not a small company. We already had, I would say, around 15 people in Vietnam and maybe 4 or 5 people in Hong Kong, right? So it means I have payroll and people already rely on me to pay them, and we are running out of money. And now COVID. So for us, COVID was a curse and a blessing. So first of all, it was just before the COVID started, we already started to raise the next round, kind of a safe extension or whatever we could back then. Again, we had no customers yet, but we already had a good traction when it comes to interest. And kind of the Hong Kong market already knew us. It's a very small market, but we're already somebody there. A small somebody, but somebody. And then COVID hit. We running out of money, and then it was very hard. I had to fire people. Like we fired a third of our company. It was very difficult for me. We cut all the salaries by 20%. I mean, tiny startup salaries we cut by 20% across the board. But yeah, so that was bad things for us. But the good thing is that the remote work all of a sudden becomes a thing, right? And remote work, everybody needs to message, right? And just a couple of months before, through this fintech innovation program, we were introduced to Credit Suisse. So, and the Credit Suisse, so it happened at that time, they had a very big scandal in Switzerland that involved, the Credit Suisse CEO spying after a very senior banker that left to UBS, and there was like a private investigator involved, and there was lots of communication over WhatsApp, right? And then kind of the Swiss regulator got involved. I mean, it's a very big bank, discovered that there was a very big communication angle in the whole thing, and then they put from the regulator, they put an observer to Credit Suisse board to oversee them solving this mobile communication compliance problem, right? Okay, so this is the backdrop. And so we're like COVID and still no customers. What do we do? No money, firing everybody. And then we got inbound interest for an RFP of Credit Suisse. RFP, and we were like, okay, I mean, we're a tiny startup without customers. How can we go RFP? We don't know what it is. I mean, Avi knew, I didn't know. So what do we do, right? So, and then we partnered, and because we've been as part of this Accenture's fintech innovation program, we said, Accenture, let's do this together. We have solution. You have your name. You have your boots on the ground in Switzerland, right? Let's apply together. And we were competing with 4 other companies, and the 3 other companies, established companies, big, and 3 out of the 4 were Swiss-based companies. I mean, and we are a tiny startup from Hong Kong. I mean, our chances are like close to 0, right?
Right.
So, but we went with Accenture. We went through RFP. We submitted. And then we were like, okay, fingers crossed. And then we won there. I mean, it wasn't just submit, fire, and forget. We went through multiple rounds of presentations to all the management teams, the whole thing, right? And it was so Avi was handling the commercial part. I was handling the product technology part, right? And that's all. And then, but it was successful because the product by then was already mature. It was working. It was working reliably. So we gave them access to a few accounts. Here, try it, right? And then they all of a sudden, they could communicate internally from mobile devices, right? Application to application. They can communicate to the clients over WhatsApp. They can communicate to the clients over WeChat. They've never seen anything like that. And nobody had anything like that on the market. So all those other players, they might be hitting the same buzzwords like communication, mobile. The product was shit. And our product was exactly what Credit Suisse needed. So yeah, so we won that, which was it was I think a second lifeline for us. And then with those news, we started to raise money, and then we were lucky that there was an investor that was following our progress in Hong Kong, and then he came to me and said, "Dima, do you need money?" Like in different words, but I mean, we're looking for companies to invest and tell me your story. And then we raised 2.5 million more. So all of a sudden we can breathe. We can bring back the 20% that we took, right? And we also rehired a couple of people, and we hired a few more. And at the same time, HSBC also it progressed into real projects. Now they want to launch the product, but they like this, they don't like that, and we need to change the product a bit, right? It's the first market validation, first input from first customers, super important, right? Because you take a concept, now you need to shape it to a product that people will use. And there are lots of pieces missing. So those first 2 customers, Credit Suisse and HSBC, they helped us to shape the product in a way that will be that financial institutions would buy. So we had 60%. They helped us to mature the remaining 40%, right? And then we launched the Credit Suisse project in record time. We launched in from first meeting to production deployment. It was 8 months. It was unheard of. And I believe it's still unheard of for the sizes of Credit Suisse. But we had it was funny because we had nothing, right? We like when large banks buying your product, they expect certifications. They expect that you have BCP, business continuity planning, right? They expect that we have tons of documentation. They expect we have operation manual. We had nothing. We had absolutely nothing. We had a product, but everything around the product was missing. So we just had we were working. Seriously, the whole team was working like 24/7 to create all of this for months over months. People were burning out. People were crying at night, but we delivered. And Create Space is still happy customer of ours. And then HSBC, kind of a few months later, we also delivered the HSBC project. It's still happy customer of us. Keep growing, right? And what's unique about our company is that people like us as a vendor. I mean, it's rare because, for example, I mean, we have competition. If you ask kind of their customers about them, you will always hear negative response. This doesn't work. It's not a good vendor, and kind of people usually don't like software vendors. That's a reality. And people like us. People like us because what we promise we deliver every time, and because we put all ourselves. For example, still, right, at the moment there is a big escalation, I'm getting involved to solve it, to ensure the customer is happy. And we always do the necessary changes to the product to ensure that the product fits what the customer needs, right? If there's a new need evolves, we are there. We're always delivering it first, and customers like it. Even if something doesn't work, we still kind of we go back, we fix it, and at the end it works.
But what's interesting to me is you were literally down to your last couple of bucks, and it worked, and you turned it around, and I'm curious where you think that comes from, and what lesson can be learned for other folks who may find themselves in similar positions with their businesses, that they don't, give up and throw in the cards.
So first of all, you need to have a good product, and you need to believe you have a good product, and your customer needs to believe you have a good product. The fundamentals of product. Second is people, right? It's surrounding yourself with people that bring you up when you're down, that complement your weaknesses with their strength, right? And with the company, we like it. So first of all, I have my co-founder, my wife, my other half, that complements my weaknesses. And my weaknesses is, for example, with that company that's brain read me, I talk too much, right? And kind of when it comes to raising money, I mean, now I'm becoming incrementally better at it, but she's like 10 times better than me. So for example, right now, she raises all around. The first couple of rounds I raised, but it was a child play compared to more senior rounds, right? Like Series A. We've done Series A, Series A plus. Now we're doing Series B. That's something that I could not do by myself, right? So, and then we have Avi. So Avi complements my. So I'm still a bit naive in business, I admit. So Avi brings the business angle, right? So commercial, business, marketing, operation, right? So things I might be lacking, right? So first is product. Second, surround yourself with people that complement you. If you cannot find co-founders, find advisors, find consultants. But when it comes to advisors and consultants, need to be very careful, because most of the people you'll meet, they will want to use you for their own benefit, for their own whatever, right? Only few of them will be genuine enough to try to help you, right? And I'm sure that like company founders, they meet those people all day long. So it's very important to find the person that you can rely on that will help you when you need the help. And then I am a strong believer in the paying forward. So the reason we are where we are is because many people along the way helped us. Like countless people helped us. And some of them help for financial gain. This is fine. It's a win-win, right? As long as they help us properly, we will pay for it. But some of them are helping because they like to help. So I'm a strong believer in paying forward, right? Because I could see the tremendous effect of people along the way helping us. And right now, if I meet somebody who asks for my help, I help them, right? Because of paying forward, right? So yeah, so it's about product, it's about people, and it's also about luck, right? I mean, let's admit we need luck in our lives sometimes, right? So we had few events, right? COVID helped us eventually, and then SEC fines, they propelled us to the whole new level, and that's why we're in the US. With SEC fines in 2021, with this wave, we've been accepted to the same program, FinTech Innovation Lab Program US, which is run by New York Partnership Fund here in New York. So with this, we're able to move our headquarters to US and kickstart our US operation. So the same thing we've been doing in Hong Kong, introduced to the whole market. We've been through this program here as well. And on this program, I was introduced. I had a face-to-face meeting with Henry Kravitz. I had a face-to-face meeting with David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, whom I pitched my product shamelessly in the meeting, right? Kind of. So again, it was a combination of being in the right time with the right product, but also luck.
Yeah, but you created that. I mean, that's what I'll go back to.
No, I mean, the way it works with luck, right? With hard work, you increase your luck surface, right? And then, you have more opportunities to be lucky to get to next stage of your evolution.
And by the way, this all started when you were building this business of helping others, right? You were on that stage, you were sharing what your thoughts were, you were telling people how to do it, right? Without making any money at that time. So you were giving away all your information for free and helping a lot of other people. So isn't it interesting that it's come full circle?
Yeah, but then, I also created one competitor, and on the way I created another competitor, right? So I, for the same talking too much, right? So right now we are competing with, I would say, roughly three other companies. That's the whole market. It's us and three other companies. I created two of them. So I created a company and I created two others. But then, I mean, but still, so throughout the existence of the company, we never ever copied anybody else. Simply because there was nobody to copy, right? It's a space we pioneered. We keep innovating. We never look back. We always look forward. And the rest of the competitors, they're copying us all day long, which is fine. We feel very comfortable leading the space, and everybody else, they're at least 1 year kind of behind us.
Is there anything that needed to happen or a mistake that you needed to make along the way to get you to where you are now?
Yeah. Well, so many mistakes. Yeah. And the more people around you have, and the more people you can bounce your ideas off, the less mistakes you make.
I would have thought the more people around you, the more ideas that come back at you, the more noise there is, the more confusing it actually gets.
Yeah, but then you choose the people right? So whenever you consult with somebody, if this somebody makes sense to you, right, you will come back, right? If it doesn't make sense, away. So mistakes, talking too much, but kind of it's a personal blessing. We create competition, and competition helps us to be better, right? So,
right.
But I mean, I would better maybe one competitor less, right? So that's a mistake. Kind of when it comes to investment, right? You really need to surround yourself with people who know how to raise money. Because at the beginning, I made a few mistakes when it comes to initial, because I was doing it by myself, because my co-founder back then was still not co-founder. She was working for a law firm, right? So she only had so much time for me. So I gave a little bit too much rights for the initial investors. I mean, it was a very painful experience, but very maturing experience. So your first rounds, you really need to pay attention to terms, because it will come back and bite you. I mean, if the investors are kind of in the helping mode, it will not bite you. But if the investors are, in a maximize profits mode, it will bite you.
But it goes back to what you're saying, which is being okay saying you don't know what you don't know, and putting the right people in place to be able to help you.
Absolutely, yes. And but I think the biggest mistakes is so you were lucky enough to surround yourself with people. You also need to listen, right? Like at the beginning, right? My both co-founders were telling me, don't talk too much. I'm like, I know better, right? I talk technology all my life, right? And and many times things they telling me and I dismiss. I mean, I'm still company CEO, right? So I'm the ultimate decision maker. It's also my accountability as well, then, right? So I'm not taking all the feedback, but many of the feedback they were giving me, they were right. I was wrong, and I wish I would listen to them back then. But again, it comes with maturity. Some of the lessons you need to learn through your mistakes.
So what I like to do before I wrap up is I'd like to just give you the mic to either talk to business owners, or perhaps to yourself, 10 years ago, or something that you just want to share to make sure that folks know, as well as how do they learn more about you and LeapXpert and reach out to you?
Oh, that's easy. I mean, in LeapXpert, we're doing great things, and our innovation speed accelerates. So right now, I believe that the whole financial industry, I mean, maybe I'm too full of myself, but the whole financial industry in the US and Europe and Asia, they know about us as a company. We are growing fast. Our first part of evolution was addressing a compliance market. Now we're moving to productivity market as well. So our product offering is growing, and we'll be announcing very exciting things very soon. But I believe people. First of all, you can email me, you can message me, right? My contacts are available everywhere. And you asked about important features or important traits of a startup founder. And I think that one of the most important ones is to being available to your people, number one, right? This is how you create a culture, company culture, but also to be being available to your prospects, to your customers, right? So kind of, no matter who messages me, what hour, unless I'm sleeping, I'm always answering, right? And from my experience with startups in general, great leaders, they have the same trait. They're always available. I don't know if summarized it enough, but that's
okay. Wonderful. Well, Dima, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's pretty amazing to hear from where you've come to where you are. And I'm incredibly excited to watch to where you go from here. This has been another episode with Gregg Cohen, Conversations with Cohen, and co-founder of LeapXpert, Dima Gutzeit. And if you liked this episode, don't hesitate to subscribe and leave a comment below. And you can reach out to us however you like. Thanks so much. Until next time. Thank you, Dima.
Thank you. See you next time.